Hari Om Tat Sat. Welcome to Swami Jyoitirmayananda Society, our journey to self-realization. Please subscribe our channel for the mystical meanings and to enjoy daily satsang. We are currently exploring the book Yoga Essays for Self-Improvement, and we are currently on the topic of how to overcome hatred, authored by Swami Jyoitirmayananda ji, narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. So, the way to cure hatred is by selflessly serving others. Do not constantly engross yourself in thoughts of pleasing yourself, but rather try to find happiness in pleasing others. The joy arising out of serving humanity far excels the joy arising out of serving oneself. The mind must be accustomed to this form of sattvic or pure joy. Develop insight into the law of karma. It is your past negative karma that places you in negative conditions and prompts others to harm you. So don't blame them. They are simply being used as instruments by God in the divine plan. And we have already done those karmas. So unless we purge them, we will not move forward. So, therefore, divine intelligence operates in all things. So, when provoked by others, instead of developing ill will towards them, try to turn your mind to the sources of all pain. What is the source? Which is ignorance. The main source is ignorance, the main root that is the problem, and endeavor to remove it by devotion and wisdom. Selfless service, satsanga, bhakti, kirtan, japa, all these are ways to purify yourself. Practice the mystic art of resignation to the divine self. When you can't handle it, let God handle it. He's already handling everything. So, there is an excellent Puranic prayer that can be of immense help in this direction. O Lord, just as the mind of the worldly person runs after the perishable objects of the world, in the same way may my mind ever flow towards thee. If one were to live in the spirit of this prayer, the mind will be so filled with lofty sentiments that it will not have room for hatred and its evil companions. So, remove pride and vanity. Develop humility and sincerity. These seem like fairly simple things to do, yet to practice them is where the real effort resides. And it will not happen overnight. It takes constant practice, and thus we say spirituality is a lifelong journey. And the more deeper you get into it, the more joy, peace, serenity, ecstasy, all these feelings you start feeling within you. You become aptakam, which means you don't need any external source of joy. From within you bubbles the nectar. Instead of keeping your mind focused on the negative points of others, direct your mind to those negative points within yourself and try to remove them. Remember, when we point one finger at someone, these three are pointing back at us. So none of us are perfect. We all have faults. We may blame others and our ego may think we are great, but when we deeply analyze, we will realize we too are human, we too have faults. So think of the illusoriness of attachment and hatred. Objects of the world do not give rise to pleasure. They do not even exist in the manner they are recognized by the mind and senses. We can only perceive what our senses allow us. If our eyes were replaced by the eyes of the eagle, we would see things very differently. If our nose was replaced by the nose of a dog, we would smell things very differently. Our whole life and perception would change, wouldn't it? So, that itself proves you that the senses we are using are limited. For us, it's something, for animals, it's something else, etc. So, thus, the world is constantly working according to our perceptions. Essentially, they are Brahman expressing through different names and forms. When you develop a deep insight into the illusoriness of objects, you will then understand that not only is there nothing in this world to which you should pin your faith and become attached, but also there is nothing in this world which you should hate with a deep rooted sense of ill will, because all things are transient. So, therefore, the yogis teach us learn equanimity of mind. Samatvam yoga uchyate. What is equanimity? Is bliss, because you don't get super excited when things are good or overly dejected when things are bad. Let the impressions of attachment and hatred fade from your unconscious. Your unconscious should become pure, untainted, like a pure crystal, reflecting the light of self within you. Since the sense of ego nourishes these two currents of the mind, you need to practice Atma Vichar, self reflection, inquiry into the nature of the self. These are profound ways for us to remove hatred. If you continue to run after the whims of the ego, you will always be a slave to your mind and senses. Therefore, E must go, ego. So, um, it subtly takes over. It takes over us in a subtle way, and we don't even realize how ego has taken control of our whole personality, and that is very detrimental if we are not careful. When you listen and when you learn the art of rising beyond your ego through meditation, devotion, and self effacing surrender to God, you become the master of your lower self. You begin to commune with the cosmic self, because now you are purifying yourself. So the lower self starts to shrivel away. Then hatred becomes sublimated into the spiritual force of love. So you are managing your emotions, changing their directions in the positive, and also benefiting directly from it. Human life is transient. The choices we make have consequences. Hatred, like other negative qualities, exists in different stages. Which level of hatred? Some people kill others by taking revenge. Some people just hold it inside, and some people use it verbally, some mentally, some physically. So different stages are there. Even when one seems to be free of hatred, his unconscious continues to hold on to it in a dormant state. So even if it's not at your mind level, it's still sitting inside your unconscious, deep within the roots, and it may spring up some other time. Therefore, a yogi seeks to remove the subtlest trace of hatred from within his unconscious mind and scorches it by the luminous vision of the self. That's what enlightened people do. Over time, the self becomes so pure that even the slightest trace, the shadow of those vices are gradually removed, and then they become totally pure and transparent like a crystal. So, whatever the self reflects is reflected through them, and we say, wow, this saint has so much aura. We come and sit here, we find so much peace. Why is that? It's because of the magnetic force from within him is bringing you that. That light of the self is um, not obstructed, it is totally free to expand, grow. So, the impressions of attachment and hatred become like roasted seeds in sages and saints. They have overcome, therefore, these seeds will no longer germinate. Whereas for most other people, They germinate when there is rainfall or fertile ground, etc. Although they seem to manifest these qualities to some extent, they are inwardly untouched by them. So, externally, life has to move on. They may show anger, but inwardly, they are cool as a cucumber. There is no impact whatsoever. Equanimity is their way, how they live inside. A saintly personality develops attachment towards things that are divine and hatred towards things that are undivine, towards hatred itself. So they don't hate anything. They simply say, I dislike it or I don't want it, etc. But they understand that all these, yet practically to live in the world, you need to use words. So they use such words. But ultimately, they don't have any deep rooted hatred or those kind of vices that most people struggle with, just because they have, and it didn't come overnight. They have been working for it for many births, and if they got enlightened, then that is the result of their past effort, which is what you are trying to do now. So we are all on that journey. And remember, a sinner is a saint in the making. He's a sinner today, tomorrow he will be a saint. And a saint is a sinner in the past. Today he's a saint, but he also was a sinner in the past. It's a gradual process. In other words, we need to be um, deep like the ocean and high like the Himalayas, mountains. We should have infinite peace, infinite patience, and determination, um, and tenacity to walk on this path. But this is the right path. Those brave souls who do emerge victorious. Hari Om Tat Sat. We will, in tomorrow's satsang, pick up the practice integral yoga, how to practice it. So, a profound chapter indeed. This is Swami Nikhilananda.